Hey everyone, and welcome back to the EMTSpot's Blood Pressure Podcast. I'm Samuel Harrison.
And I'm Olivia Harper.
And we are thrilled you could join us for another deep dive.
Today we're tackling a topic that you specifically requested.
Alpha blockers.
That's right. We're going to break down what they are, how they work, and the potential benefits and drawbacks.
And to guide us through this fascinating world of alpha blockers, we have the incredible Olivia Harper with us.
Thanks for having me, Samuel. I'm excited to dive in.
Perfect. So it looks like you've been doing your research, sending us some really interesting information from the EMT spot. So let's get right to it, Olivia.
Absolutely.
Can you give us a simple explanation of what alpha blockers actually are?
Sure. So alpha blockers are medications that block something called alpha adrenergic receptors.
Alpha what now?
Alpha adrenergic receptors.
Okay, you're going to have to break that down for me.
Haha, no problem. Think of these receptors like tiny little locks on your blood vessels and prostate.
Locks, interesting.
Yeah, and when these locks are activated, they can cause your blood vessels to constrict, which raises your blood pressure.
Oh, that makes sense.
And they can also make it harder to pee if you have an enlarged prostate.
So are alpha blockers like little keys that unlock these receptors?
That's a great way to think about it. By blocking these receptors, alpha blockers essentially relax the muscles in your blood vessels, which helps lower blood pressure.
Oh, I see.
And they relax the muscles in the prostate too, which can help men with an enlarged prostate, a condition called BPH.
So they're kind of like a two-for-one deal.
Exactly.
Interesting. So why aren't alpha blockers always the first choice for treating high blood pressure?
That's a good question. While they can be effective, other types of blood pressure medications might be more suitable as a first step.
Like what?
Well, you have things like diuretics or ACE inhibitors, for example.
So it's about finding the right tool for the job.
Exactly. Your doctor can help determine the most appropriate treatment based on your individual needs.
Makes sense. Yeah. Now let's talk about those benefits. What are some of the key advantages of using alpha blockers?
Well, one of the biggest advantages, particularly for men with BPH, is their ability to relieve urinary symptoms.
You mean like having to go all the time?
Yeah, exactly. Or struggling to start peeing or feeling like your bladder isn't fully empty.
Not fun.
Alpha blockers can really help with those issues.
Oh, good to know.
Another benefit is that they're generally well tolerated, with most people not experiencing major side effects.
That's always a plus.
And sometimes they can even be used in combination with other blood pressure medications to enhance their effectiveness.
So it's like a team effort.
Precisely.
You mentioned earlier that alpha blockers have a unique way of working. But honestly, all this talk about receptors is a bit over my head.
Haha, I hear you. It can get a bit technical.
Can you break it down for us non-medical folks?
Of course. Let's try a different approach. Imagine your blood vessels are like highways.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Some blood pressure medications, like diuretics, work by reducing the amount of traffic on those highways.
Less traffic, less congestion.
Exactly. Now, alpha blockers are more like widening the lanes on those highways.
Interesting.
They don't reduce the number of cars, but they create more space for the cars to flow smoothly, which lowers the pressure.
Ah, that makes so much more sense.
I'm glad it helps.
So it's about creating a smoother flow, not necessarily reducing the volume.
That's a great way to put it.
I'm getting the hang of this.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned different types of alpha blockers. Can you tell us more about them?
Sure. There are a few key players: tamsulosin, terazosin, doxazosin, and prazosin.
Whoa, those are some mouthful names.
Haha, they are. But there's an easy way to remember them.
Oh, help me.
Think of the acronym TAD, TED-ADS.
Ted's got it.
Perfect. So let's start with tamsulosin.
Okay, Mr. T.
You can think of tamsulosin as the specialist. It's often the go-to choice for those bothersome urinary symptoms that come with BPH.
So it mainly focuses on the prostate and bladder.
Exactly. It helps to relax those muscles and improve urine flow.
Got it. What about the other guys?
Terazosin and doxazosin are like the multitaskers of the group.
How so?
They can tackle both BPH and high blood pressure because they act on those alpha-1 receptors in both the prostate and the blood vessels.
So they're like the versatile members of the team.
You got it.
What about prazosin?
Prazosin is primarily used for high blood pressure, but it can be prescribed for other conditions as well.
So each one has its own strengths and uses.
Exactly.
But I imagine, like any medication, they come with potential side effects, right?
You're right. It's important to be aware of the potential downsides. One of the more common ones is something called orthostatic hypotension.
Orthostatic hypotension.
Yeah, it's a big word.
I think I've heard of it, but remind me what it is.
You know that feeling when you stand up too quickly and get lightheaded or dizzy?
Oh, yeah. I've definitely experienced that.
That's orthostatic hypotension. Basically, your blood pressure drops suddenly when you change positions, and alpha blockers can sometimes make this more likely to happen.
So it's like that feeling, but amplified.
Exactly. You want to be careful with that.
Okay, good to know. What other side effects should people watch out for?
Some other common ones include fatigue, nasal congestion, and headaches.
Those sound a lot like cold symptoms.
That's not a coincidence. Remember those alpha receptors we talked about? They're found all over your body.
Oh, right, not just in the blood vessels and prostate.
Exactly. So blocking them can have a ripple effect, causing those seemingly unrelated symptoms.
Interesting. So it's not just about the target areas.
Right. It can impact other parts of your body as well.
Got it. What about drug interactions?
That's another crucial thing to be aware of. Alpha blockers can interact with other medications you might be taking.
Like what?
Well, it could be medications for blood pressure or erectile dysfunction,
Okay.
or even over-the-counter cold and allergy medicines.
So basically, don't mix and match without talking to your doctor.
Exactly. Always talk to your doctor about all the medications and supplements you're taking before starting an alpha blocker.
Or making any changes to your current medications, right?
Absolutely. They can help you navigate those potential interactions and keep you safe.
I can't stress that enough open communication with your doctor is key.
Couldn't agree more. And it brings us to a really important point. Always consult your doctor before starting any new medication.
Especially something like an alpha blocker.
Right. They can look at your individual situation, consider your medical history, and determine if an alpha blocker is the right fit for you.
Makes sense. So this deep dive is all about providing information. But it's not a substitute for personalized medical advice.
Exactly. It's essential to have that conversation with your healthcare provider.
So they can guide you through the process and make sure you're making the best decisions for your health.
Exactly.
Now, that's some great advice to end on, but there's so much more to uncover about alpha blockers. So be sure to join us for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll delve even deeper into this fascinating world.
We'll be back soon.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. It's great to have you with us for part 2 of our deep dive into alpha blockers.
I'm excited to keep this conversation going. As we were talking about these medications and potential side effects, I was thinking about something really important.
What's that?
Lifestyle changes.
Ah,
They're often the unsung heroes of blood pressure management, wouldn't you say?
absolutely. Lifestyle plays a huge role in both preventing and managing high blood pressure.
And sometimes even simple changes can make a big difference.
That's right.
So let's talk about those changes. What are some of the most effective lifestyle modifications people can make?
The big 3 are diet, exercise, and stress management.
Okay, the trifecta. Let's break those down one by one.
Sounds good.
Starting with diet. What are some key things people should focus on?
Well, it all starts with embracing those whole unprocessed foods.
Like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Give your body the good stuff it needs.
Fueling up with nutrient-packed powerhouses.
That's the idea. And of course, you also want to watch your intake of things like salt, saturated fat, and added sugar.
Those can be sneaky little culprits,
Yeah,
right?
they sure can.
So diet's a biggie. What about exercise? How much do we need to get our heart pumping?
Aim for at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise most days of the week.
30 minutes, most days.
Okay.
That's doable.
It is. And the best part is it doesn't have to be anything too strenuous.
Right.
Brisk walking, swimming, dancing, gardening, all those things can count.
So it's all about finding activities you enjoy and making them a part of your routine.
Exactly. Find your groove and get moving.
Makes sense. Now, stress, that's a big one these days, right?
It definitely is. Chronic stress can really contribute to high blood pressure, so finding healthy ways to manage it is essential.
So what are some effective stress-busting strategies?
Think yoga meditation, spending time in nature.
Oh, those are all great ideas.
Even just taking a few minutes each day to breathe deeply and relax can make a difference.
It's all about taking a holistic approach, addressing both the physical and the mental.
Exactly.
And I want to emphasize that these lifestyle modifications are important for everyone, not just those taking medication for blood pressure.
You're absolutely right.
They can help prevent high blood pressure in the first place. And for those already on medication, they can enhance its effectiveness.
It's true. They can even potentially allow you to reduce your dosage over time.
That's amazing. So it's not an either situation. It's about weaving those healthy habits into your life alongside any medical treatment.
Precisely. It's about empowering yourself to take control of your health.
I love that. Speaking of empowering patients, let's talk about patient education.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer that the more people understand about their conditions and medications, the better equipped they are to make informed
I
decisions.
couldn't agree more. Patient education is absolutely crucial.
When people understand how their medications work, why they're taking them, and what to expect, they're more likely to stick to their treatment plan.
And have better outcomes.
Exactly. It's not about blindly following doctors' orders. It's about being an active participant in your healthcare,
Exactly. It's about fostering a sense of shared decision-making.
where patients feel empowered to ask questions, voice their concerns, and work together with their healthcare providers.
Exactly.
So bringing you back to alpha blockers, what are some things you wish more patients knew about these medications?
One thing I often find myself explaining is that alpha blockers aren't a quick fix.
They don't lower your blood pressure instantly.
They don't. It takes time for them to work, and it's important to be patient and consistent with your medication.
So it's more of a long-term commitment.
That's a great way to put it. And another thing to remember is that alpha blockers might not be the right solution for everyone.
Right. We talked about that earlier. There's a whole range of blood pressure medications out there, and the best choice really depends on the individual.
Exactly.
And sometimes a combination of medications might be necessary to achieve optimal blood pressure control.
That's right.
It's all about finding the right approach for each person.
Absolutely.
Another thing you mentioned is the importance of managing expectations. What do you mean by that?
Well, while alpha blockers can be very effective in lowering blood pressure and improving urinary symptoms, they're not a cure.
Right? So it's not about eliminating the condition entirely. It's more about managing it and maintaining a good quality of life.
Precisely.
Okay, that's a really important point to remember.
And as always, I can't stress enough the importance of open communication with your doctor.
Right. Don't hesitate to ask questions, report any side effects, or voice any concerns you may have.
Exactly. It's about working together as a team to achieve the best possible outcomes for your health.
I love that teamwork approach. Now let's talk about those outcomes.
Okay.
What are some of the potential long-term benefits of effectively managing high blood pressure?
The most significant benefit is reducing your risk of serious cardiovascular events like heart attack, stroke, and heart failure.
Wow, those are some serious conditions.
They are. High blood pressure is a major risk factor for all of them.
So managing your blood pressure isn't just about a number on a chart. It's about protecting your long-term health and well-being.
Exactly.
It's a powerful message.
And there are other benefits too.
Such as,
Managing high blood pressure can help protect your kidneys, prevent vision problems, and improve your overall quality of life.
so many positive benefits.
It's true. And the good news is that with effective treatment, most people can achieve and maintain healthy blood pressure levels.
That's definitely encouraging. Now, I want to touch on something that often comes up when discussing high blood pressure.
What's that?
Genetics.
I guess.
We know that family history can play a role, but how much of an impact does it really have?
That's a great question. While genetics definitely play a role, it's not the whole story. It's not a predetermined fate.
So if your parents had high blood pressure, it doesn't mean you're guaranteed to have it too.
Exactly. Having a family history does increase your risk, but it doesn't mean you're destined to develop it.
So there's still a lot you can do to influence your health outcomes.
Absolutely.
Those lifestyle factors we discussed earlier can make a big difference.
They really can.
Even if you have a genetic predisposition, making healthy choices can significantly reduce your risk.
That's an important message.
So it's about knowing your family history and being proactive,
Exactly.
taking steps to mitigate your risk.
And it's important to remember that genetics is complex. We're still learning a lot about how specific genes influence blood pressure.
It's an ongoing area of research.
It is, and as we learn more, we'll be able to develop even more targeted and personalized approaches to prevention and treatment.
Exciting times ahead. Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to patient education for a moment.
Okay.
We talked about the benefits, but what are some of the challenges in effectively educating patients about their health conditions and medications?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is the sheer volume of information available these days.
Information overload.
Exactly. It can be really overwhelming for patients to sift through all the noise and figure out what's reliable and what's not.
So it's about helping them navigate that information maze and find credible sources.
Absolutely. And another challenge is that everyone learns differently. Some people are visual learners, others prefer verbal explanations, and some learn best by doing.
So it's about tailoring the approach to meet those individual learning styles.
Precisely. And then there's the issue of health literacy.
Not everyone understands medical jargon.
Right. Not everyone has the same level of understanding of medical terminology or concepts.
So it's important to use clear and concise language that everyone can understand.
Exactly. And finally, there's the issue of time constraints.
Doctors don't always have a lot of time to spend on education.
Unfortunately not. They're often under pressure to see a large volume of patients.
So it's about finding creative ways to maximize that time and deliver information effectively.
That's right. And I think technology can play a big role here.
How so?
Well, there are some amazing online resources that can supplement in-person education.
So it's about embracing a multifaceted approach.
Exactly. And recognizing that patient education is an ongoing process, not a one-time event.
It needs to be integrated into every aspect of care.
I agree.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on something that's often overlooked: the emotional impact of chronic health conditions.
Eyes.
Living with a condition like high blood pressure can take a toll on a person's mental and emotional well-being, would you say?
Absolutely. It can be incredibly stressful to constantly monitor your blood pressure, make lifestyle changes, and take medications day after day.
It's a lot to manage.
It is, and there's often a fear of the unknown.
Like, what if my blood pressure spikes?
Yeah.
Or what if I have a heart attack or stroke?
Exactly. Those thoughts can be very scary.
So it's not just about managing the physical symptoms. It's about addressing the emotional and psychological burden that comes with a chronic condition.
You're absolutely right.
So how can people cope with those emotional challenges? What advice would you give?
Having a strong support system is crucial.
Friends, family, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Talking to loved ones, joining a support group, or seeking professional counseling can all be incredibly helpful.
It's a reminder that you don't have to go through this alone.
That's so important.
And it highlights the importance of human connection, especially when facing health challenges.
Absolutely.
And I think it's also crucial for healthcare providers to be mindful of the emotional needs of their patients,
I agree.
to see the whole person, not just the condition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Taking a few minutes to ask about their emotional well-being, offering resources, providing encouragement, it can make a world of difference.
Well said. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive. We explored the impact of lifestyle modifications, the role of genetics, the challenges and strategies of patient education, and the importance of addressing the emotional side of chronic conditions.
It's been a great conversation.
It has. But there's still more to come. Be sure to join us for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll delve into specific scenarios, considerations for different patient populations, and some exciting emerging trends in the management of hypertension and BPH.
See you soon.
Welcome back to the TheEMTSpot's Blood Pressure Podcast for the final part of our deep dive into alpha blockers.
I'm excited to wrap up this exploration with you.
Me too. We've covered so much ground already, but we still got some fascinating territory to explore. In this last part, we're going to dive into specific scenarios where alpha blockers might be particularly helpful, or maybe even situations where they call for extra caution.
Sounds good.
Are you ready for round 3?
Let's do it.
All right, so let's start with those scenarios where alpha blockers really shine. I have a feeling I know where this is going.
You're probably thinking about patients with both high blood pressure and BPH, right?
Bingo. It seems like a no-brainer, considering their dual action on blood vessels and the prostate.
We got it. In those cases, alpha blockers can be a game changer. They can address both conditions simultaneously.
Talk about efficiency. It must be especially beneficial for older men who are more prone to both hypertension and BPH.
Exactly. It simplifies their treatment plan and can really improve their quality of life.
I love that, killing two birds with one stone, so to speak. Now, are there any other situations where alpha blockers might be considered, even if they're not the first-line treatment?
There are some interesting emerging applications. For example, in some cases of heart failure, particularly heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, alpha blockers might be considered as part of the treatment strategy.
Really? I wouldn't have naturally linked alpha blockers with heart failure.
It's not always the go-to choice, but research suggests that in certain types of heart failure, they can help improve symptoms and enhance quality of life for some patients.
That's fascinating. So we're expanding our understanding of how these medications can be used.
Exactly. Medicine is constantly evolving, and we're always learning new things.
It's like unlocking hidden potential. Okay, so we've talked about the good. Now let's flip the script. Are there any situations where alpha blockers might require extra caution or might not be the best choice at all?
Yes, definitely. It's important to remember that no medication is a perfect fit for everyone. For example, in patients who already have orthostatic hypotension, those sudden drops in blood pressure when standing up alpha blockers could make things worse.
Right, because they're already prone to those dizzy spells,
Yeah.
and the medication could amplify that effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another situation where caution is needed is in patients with certain liver or kidney diseases. Their bodies might metabolize the medication differently.
So it's all about considering the individual patient and tailoring the treatment accordingly.
Absolutely. One size does not fit all.
That's why having that open and honest conversation with your doctor is so important.
I couldn't agree more.
And speaking of those conversations, what are some of the things you find yourself discussing most frequently with patients when it comes to alpha blockers? What are their top concerns?
Side effects are definitely a major topic of conversation. People want to know what to expect, how common they are, and how to manage them.
It's understandable. It's natural to be a bit apprehensive about potential side effects, especially when starting a new medication.
Of course, I always reassure patients that most side effects associated with alpha blockers are mild and often go away over time, and if they do linger, there are usually ways to manage them effectively.
So it's all about providing information and reassurance, giving patients the tools they need to feel comfortable and in control.
Exactly.
Another thing you mentioned earlier is the importance of consistency with medication. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure, it's tempting to think you can just take them when you have symptoms, but alpha blockers don't work that way. They need to be taken regularly to maintain a steady level in your system.
So it's about building that foundation of consistent medication to keep those blood pressure or prostate issues in check.
Precisely.
Okay, I'm loving these insights. Now, I can't let you go without talking about the future. What are some of the emerging trends in the management of hypertension and BPH? What's got you excited?
Ooh, that's a fun one. One area that I'm really excited about is the development of combination medications.
So instead of taking multiple pills for different conditions, you could have one pill that tackles multiple issues at once.
Exactly. It streamlines treatment and makes it so much easier for patients to manage their medications.
Love it. Efficiency is key.
Yeah.
What else is on the horizon?
Another exciting area is personalized medicine, using genetic information to tailor treatments to individual patients.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, you could have medications specifically designed for your unique genetic makeup.
That's the idea. And there's already progress being made in identifying genetic markers that can predict how individuals will respond to certain medications, including alpha blockers.
That's incredible. So we're moving towards a future of more precise and targeted treatment.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see what the future holds. It's an exciting time to be in medicine.
It really is.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our amazing deep dive into alpha blockers. We've covered so much ground, from the basics of how they work to the latest advancements in the field.
It's been an incredible journey.
It really has. And a huge thank you to you, Olivia, for sharing your expertise and insights with us.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of our fantastic listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you found this deep dive informative and empowering. I'm Samuel Harrison.
And I'm Olivia Harper.
And you've been listening to the EMT Spot's Blood Pressure Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share this episode with anyone who might find it helpful. Until next time, take care and stay informed.